Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on my channel. In case you haven't heard, there has been a recent spate of layoffs within the tech industry, most noticeably the FANG companies, which are Meta, formerly known as Facebook, Amazon, Netflix and Google. I know, there probably are many videos out there regarding this topic already, so why would you want to watch yet another video on this? But please bear with me, and I hope that it can help to give you a fresh look at this situation. So, how did it all start? Well, during the COVID pandemic in 2020, when governments locked down countries, and almost everyone had to stay at home. It was a mini boom of sorts for the tech companies, as people couldn't do much activities at home, and had to turn to technology for their needs, from source of entertainment to news to grocery deliveries. The tech industry saw an increase in demand for their products and services, and expanded to try to keep up with it, or even tried to preempt the future by employing more people, perhaps more than sufficient personnel than is required at that point in time. It was also a time of low interest rates, as the Federal Reserve Bank reduced the rate significantly. Low interest rates, along with possibly unrealistic expectations of sustained growth in demand, fueled the hiring frenzy of the tech industry. However, 3 years into the pandemic and the narrative seemed to have changed drastically. War in Ukraine, high inflation rates globally and a rapid rise in interest rates have sparked whispers of recession going into 2023. People are no longer staying at home due to available vaccines and lifting of restrictions by various governments. Tech companies have cited such reasons and others as a reason for scaling down and thus, layoffs. One tech company started layoffing and it seemed like others followed suit. This would be a brief summary of what happened anyway. But how do we make sense of it? We shall try to look at some financial data to assess the need for layoffs, and hopefully, you can make some conclusions yourself based on the data presented. The data are taken from the 10K forms of the respective companies and their company websites. First, let's take a look at the revenue of the FANG companies, along with Microsoft and Apple, as these are the usual tech stalwart companies. I know, that's a staggering number of zeros, and the numbers are pretty huge. These companies are clearly good at making money and raking in sweet billions of dollars each year. But how well are they at keeping profits after deducting expenses? Well, the next chart shows it. Overall, their profit margin is still insanely good for companies, sitting between a range of 20 to 30+%. Although Amazon surprises me, with a relatively low profit margin despite its huge top-line revenue. It also made a slight loss for the financial year of 2022. Another noticeable dip is the revenue for Meta, which coincides with a slowdown in advertising spending and huge investment into the metaverse at a cost of $10 billion a year. Next up, let's take a look at the hiring trend of the companies over the past 5 years. Headcount has been growing steadily over the years for the companies. One noticeable thing is that the headcount at Amazon exploded upwards in 2020, but we have to keep in mind that it includes both corporate and warehouse employees, and due to the nature of Amazon's business, the high headcount is expected. Now, what if we chart the year-on-year change in the number of employees? What would it look like? Surprisingly, we see that the growth in employee headcount has been somewhat consistent across each individual company over the years, with the exception of Amazon and Google, which has erratic changes. We see that Meta's headcount has actually dropped over the years and Microsoft has actually increased the headcount the most in 2022. Of course, this data only takes into consideration during the pandemic years, but large companies wouldn't have huge changes in hiring policies year on year, and we can only extrapolate this to years prior to 2018. Yes, this is an assumption that I'm willing to make as I just didn't have the time to research it. Moving on, what other data can we look at? Well, we can take a look at the general and administrative expenses as well. The staff overhead would be here as well. This would actually be a very conservative number, as it includes non-payroll related expenses as well. One thing to note about Apple's expenses is that it is relatively higher compared to the other companies because it includes sales expenses as well, and they didn't break down the expenses. But you can see the expenses have grown significantly over the years, even doubling and nearly tripling for Meta and Google. Plotting it as a percentage of revenue, we can have a better sense of it as though it has increased over the years. It is actually in line with the increase in revenue as well, though it has increased more than proportionately for Meta in the past 2 years. As an added bonus, I have made an oversimplified calculation of the average pay of each employee over the past 5 years by simply dividing the total general and administrative expenses by the number of employees and tabled it accordingly. The numbers paint a story as well. Amazon's pay seems to be low, but this would be skewed by the number of warehouse employees it has. As of financial year 2022, they have 300,000 corporate employees, which makes up approximately 20% of the number of employees for the year. Another way to look at it is that the corporate employees are paid significantly higher compared to the warehouse employees. From the numbers as well, it would also seem to suggest that Meta and Netflix employees are highly paid compared to Google and Apple, which are the average, and the lowest paid employees appear to be from Microsoft, though a deeper look is required to investigate it further. It could be a similar case of Microsoft to Amazon, as they do have higher numbers of employees compared to the other companies, and there might be a segregation of workers where a segment of them earn a significantly higher salary. Of course, as with all data, it can only tell a certain story, but to really get a full picture, it is required to do further analysis, as it could also be the case that a handful of employees are truly highly compensated compared to the rest. Due to the nature and privacy of compensation data, this is not easily obtained. So, these companies announced these layoffs numbers. What is the actual financial cost to it? I have multiplied the number of affected employees and the average compensation of employees with a sensitivity analysis and tabulated the results in the table. There have been some estimates reported by various news outlets as well, and I have included them as well. The ballpark estimates based on the sensitivity analysis may seem off compared to the news outlet estimations, but it does give you a general sense of things. Naturally, I have excluded Amazon and Apple as well. Amazon's and Microsoft's cost are difficult to estimate, and surprise, surprise, Apple did not lay off any employees. So, what are some takeaways from churning through all these data? We can see that the companies are laying off people while they are still hugely profitable, having comfortable profit margins and a cozy cash cushion. This contrasts against layoffs in the past where companies do that in order to survive, while this time round, it feels that it's a preemptive layoff against recession or downturn in profits. Yes, there are some whispers of it, but it has not occurred yet. The growth of employees through the years has actually been somewhat consistent, apart from Amazon, which has large swings due to the nature of it, and Google and Microsoft, which have a slightly higher increase in headcount for the year 2022. With the back-of-the-envelope calculation of pay per employee, it seems that there are some employers that pay noticeably higher than others. Yes, I'm looking at you, Meta. The trend in ongoing general and administrative expenses backs the calculations up to. So in a sense, if we are going to compare which company is the most justified in cutting costs, that would have to be Meta, especially with Mark Zuckerberg's announcement of continuing large sums of investments into his idea of the metaverse. Something to think about also, which is not evident from the data presented earlier, is the manner in which the layoffs were conducted. Some companies such as Meta have provided the employees with ample time and support and generous severance packages to come to terms with the news of layoff, while others such as Google have opted for the direct approach of cutting off access. Some Google employees have also been quoted saying that the manner of layoffs were seemingly randomized, as high performers were let go. This would be reminiscent of when financial bankers who were laid off were spotted with their boxes during the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009, though in a much colder and mechanical manner. This serves as a stark reminder that your job is definitely not your life, as companies can replace any employee easily. Looking from a different angle, one could also argue that there are other alternatives to layoffs, such as reducing executives' pay or so. One such example is Apple. Tim Cook has voluntarily taken a more than 40% cut in his compensation package for the year. Other companies such as Google have instead opted for a combination of layoffs and reduction in compensation packages for executives, though there has been no details out so far on the percentage of cut and duration of it. And of course, there could be many other angles to look at this situation and figure out why they are conducting layoffs, like finding out the borrowing cost of each of these companies, and wondering if it is really impacting the bottom line or if there is pressure from shareholders to please them in the form of improved share performance. Only time will tell with business and share price performance. Or there could even be other hidden reasons which cannot be revealed to the public. We will never know. For those who are impacted by the layoff, Watching this video will not bring closure to the whirlpool of emotions that you must be feeling, but hopefully it does give a different perspective on it. I sincerely hope that you press on and be able to find a suitable job soon. For those who have the luxury of time, you may choose to take this time and opportunity to decompress and relax, or travel, or even to learn something new. Do you have any thoughts on it? Feel free to comment in the comment box down below. If you liked this video and would like to see more content of this nature, please be sure to like and subscribe as well. Thanks for watching, and until next time.